guys, okay, just finished Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. This was a really good book. Highly recommend reading it, but I've got to get right into the review because I am crying right now, and this is a spoiler alert. If you don't want to know why I'm crying, don't watch the rest of this video, okay? Okay. I literally just finished. I'm still crying. I'm not okay. We're gonna have another sob again later. Anyway, there's lots of lovely little illustrations in this book. I'm really pleased about that. I'm assuming they're all done by Cassandra Jean. Are they? Are you not telling me who the illustrations are by? Well, the discourtesy. Whatever. Okay. This was really good. Okay, like, honestly, you need to read this just for the extra depth you'll get, the extra information, just all of it, okay? Read it. I know you don't necessarily have to read the novella bind-ups, but come on, guys. You've got to. So worth the read, and honestly, most perspective is from Simon's. In fact, pretty much all of it is. And it just makes you love that boy more. Simon is such a precious being, okay? We must protect him. Protect the baby. Okay, let's get into it. Oh, and you'll see why I'm an emotional mess. I'm not okay. Okay. Right. Okay, so Simon is going to the Shadowhunter Academy because, one, he can't be around his mum. Okay, Simon hasn't gotten all of his memories back, but he's gotten a few, and sadly one of the ones he did get was his mum banishing him from the house for being a vampire, and he's not handling it well. Fair enough. And two, he can't cope with the gang's expectations. They keep expecting him to be, well, himself, and he doesn't remember who that is, so he just wants to get away. The academy is decrepit. It's in disrepair. Like, there's slime everywhere, there's a leaning tower, it's a mess. It's, oof. Kat's here, Katerina. Yes, she's gonna be the warlock instructor. She makes everything more fabulous. Also, do you like my new jumper? Because I do. Love George Lovelace. George Lovelace is Simon's roommate. He's from Scotland. He's so sweet. His family is sheep farmers, and you may recognize the name Lovelace from Jessamine Lovelace. This is another branch of the family who did successfully escape into the mundane world. Beatrice is okay, but John and Julie are very snobbish. There's clear division among the elites and the dregs. So the elites are people with Shadowhunter blood, and the dregs are mundanes that are hoping to ascend. Simon is part of the elites because, well, he's a freaking hero of both the Dark and Mortal Wars, so they can't exactly call him a dreg. Even though he's fantastic at archery, he's kind of failing at everything else. And then he remembers Jordan, and he loses it at the others and decides to join the dregs, because they're disparaging downworlders. And then they look at him and like, oh no, vampires, they're the sort of class, and he just loses it, because he's just remembered the death of Jordan and his friend was a werewolf, and he loses it, and then goes up to the dean, and is like, hey, move me to the dregs. And George comes with him because it turns out he's adopted. He's not a Lovelace by blood. Susie is currently on hiatus. When one of you has amnesia, it's a little bit hard to continue a relationship. Simon is such a nerd. I love it. All of the references. Star Wars, D&D, yes, my boy. But he needs to have more faith in himself. Darling, you were fabulous. Before you became a vampire, you'll be fabulous now. Simon and 20 others get their first mission to kill a vamp. John is a bully and a coward. Because he's all macho and he's like, I'm friends with Jase Herondale. It's like, Etsy, I can kill 20 vamps. And then when they actually see one, he's terrified. And yeah. Izzy killed the vamp. Simon couldn't do it. He was thinking too much about the logistics. And as they're heading back, he's like questioning the system. He's like, why isn't there downwarded jail? Why isn't there rehab? Kat told him an interesting story about Tobias Herondale. So basically, Tobias Herondale was this Herondale who, there was like this massive fight against the Warlocks, and he ran away from the fight, and leaving his pregnant wife behind. And so they decided to put his punishment that he was meant to take because he ran away from the fight onto his pregnant wife. And obviously, Katerina actually has a soul, unlike those Shadowhunters apparently, and rescued the unborn babe. And yeah, took her and raised him and took him into the muddy world. So there's possibly a Herondale bloodline of mundanes running around. that actually reassures me. Clary came to visit. That was nice. Jase guest stars, and he's causing mischief with Simon's amnesia. He keeps saying to him, like, oh, Alec doesn't like you because... and doing other stuff. And they have to jump out of a tree. You know, to practice dropping as opposed to falling. I don't know. Julie lost her family in the Dark War. Like, her mother was in Darkened, and then her sister was killed in front of her, so she's going through a lot, that girl. Tessa tells the story about Jack the Ripper, so Tessa comes to visit, my girl! And she tells us the story about Jack the Ripper. Apparently he was a demon child frog thing. It wasn't exactly clear what he was, but he was a demon of some kind. And Jessamine saves the day, because the demon eventually tracks the Shadowhunters back to their house and has hidden all the children somewhere. And they realize it's childlike, so Jessamine leads him into playing with his dolls. Jessamine is doing kick-ass as a ghost. And yeah, so she saves the day. And the kids are adorable. Like, James Aaron does this little wooden spoon running around going, spoon, spoon. And you're just like, oh. And they use any excuse to have Jem over. So while Jack the Ripper's stalking the streets, they have Jem around constantly because they're like, we might need a silent brother. Love it. Simon convinces Jase to talk to Tessa, which is good because it means Jase gets some answers about the Herondales, because obviously all the other Herondales are dead, but Tessa knew one of the best and helped raise some of the best, presumably. Simon writes Izzy a lovely letter, and the Dregs challenge the elites to a baseball game. Okay, so getting a call. Sorry about that, ladies and gents. My parents called, and I haven't spoken them to a bit, so I really need to have a chat with them. Okay, where was I? I have no idea. Yeah, okay, I think I was here. Simon had convinced Jase to talk to Tessa, which is lovely because she would be able to impart with him part of the Herondale history. And Simon writes Izzy a lovely letter. And then, like, the next one, because this is basically a series of short stories. In the next story, the Dregs challenge the elites to a baseball game, because honestly, there is one of the so-called Dregs, Marisol, who honestly, she's the most badass person there. And so she's like, you know what, we challenge you to something, and you can't say anything bad about us if we win. And they're like, okay, sure. A baseball game. And they're like, what's that? I know nothing about mundanes. And it's awesome. And then Kat tells Simon to stay behind and tells him a lovely story about James Herondale at the academy. So James Herondale is the son of Will and Tessa. And yeah, so we get there and Alistair Carstairs leaves a lot to be desired, so honestly, it's disappointed me. I'm like, this is the Carstairs. Jem would be disappointed. And then it's revealed, like, in, like, the most dramatic fashion possible. James has inherited, like, powers from his mother. He has shadow powers. Almost akin to shadow traveling, I'd say. He can disappear into the shadows, and it's pretty cool. But sadly, because of this, everyone wants to get rid of him. Because he's not, your typical Shadowhunter, so they want him out. The other thing is he's really bad at making friends, and his father thought he could be friends with Alistair Carstairs because, his Parabatai was the thing, so, yeah. And he knows he can be friends with Thomas and Christopher Lightwood because they're his cousins, and he actually knows them, but they're with Matthew Fairchild, and Matthew Fairchild finds it so easy to make friends and to just, be a likable person, and so James actually resents him and is jealous of him and doesn't get along with him at all. But speaking of those three, I love Thomas, Christopher, and Matthew. They are just awesome. And Ragnar Feller's there. This is like his first year teaching at the Warlock, at the academy thing. He's fabulous. He's awesome. And yeah, it's just really, really good. We learn that Matthew is usually the one to take care of his dad and make sure he doesn't accidentally set himself on fire. And so he has been doing everything he can to get expelled. And then when James starts to get excluded and stuff, he and Matthew have a confrontation, and then after that they're friends. So then Matthew's hanging out with Thomas, Christopher, and Matthew, and it's awesome. And then Alistair and his two lackeys decide to get back at James by releasing a demon, and one of the lackeys dies, and basically James gets blamed for it and gets expelled, and so Matthew's like, the heck with this, I'm not staying here too. So he gets Christopher to give him the right ingredients and blows up part of the academy so he can get expelled too. And then it's like, take me with you. And then when he's like, and when Will's like, I don't know if we can, he's like, no, we're gonna be Parabatai. You gotta take me with you. And then they decide to actually be Parabatai, and it's so awesome. I love it. I love Matthew Fairchild, but honestly, any child of Henry Branwell, I'm gonna love. Okay, and the Dregs win the game, and I just love that the Dregs win the game of baseball against the Shadowhunters. Yeah. Okay, Simon thought about, after this story, asking Clary to be his Parabatai. Next book, Robert and Izzy show up. It's the end of the first year, so basically he's at the Shadowhunter Academy for 2 years, and this story takes place over those 2 years. These stories take place over those 2 years, and so this is at the end of the first year. And Robert talks about the circle, and we get a glimpse into his past, like when he was at the academy, and just poor Michael Wayland. He and Robert were so close. They were Parabatai, and Valentine ruined everything because Michael didn't think slaughtering defenseless downworlders was a good thing, so Valentine ruined it, but Robert went along with it, and he's realized by this point, obviously, what a mistake that was, and he hasn't forgiven himself, so... And he's very clever. They get Izzy to test the kids to see if they can fall for the same mistakes that Robert and the other circle members fell for by getting them to summon a demon. And Simon and later Julie as well, but Simon's like, this is a bad idea, guys. This is nuts. You can't do this. And so he eventually goes to tell the teachers, and Julie does too, and they stop it and reveal it was a test the whole time. And then, Robert tries to talk to Izzy. I'm not sure if it works or not, but he tries. And Izzy and Simon are in a really weird limbo. She didn't read the letter. I'm honestly devastated. That letter was lovely. In the next one, we learn more about Helen. Helen is here, and I would say she's being fabulous, but the situation... She is forced to tell the students about what happened to her father and her uncle, and how she and her brother Mark were the result of this. And basically they got kidnapped by the fairies, and... Okay, I am honestly lost as to what exactly happened. I think... So, either the Seelie lady, who is their mother, tricked their father into loving her, or she did love him and then made him think his love, and he did love her, and then made him think his love was a lie, because the whole time this was going on, his brother was being tortured, and she didn't think he could cope with that, and so let him believe it was a lie so that they could reconcile, because she truly did love him, and she loved the children, but they were not this boy, so she gave them to the father, and I'm honestly just so confused as to which story is true. And if it is, then it proves my theory not all Seelies are bad, it's just they've really messed up politics. And yet she's treated so horribly. Like, everyone hates her because she's part Seelie. And Simon stands up in defense of her and of Seelies in general, because he's like, they can't possibly all be bad. We shouldn't punish all of them for the sins of some. And you can't punish her. She had nothing to do with it. And they're like, but she's a Seelie. And he's like, no, she's not. She's a Shadowhunter. Oh, and it's beautiful. But in good news, she's marrying Elaine. They're getting married. I'm just... Yeah. Simon is such a pure soul. He's so pure. And he and Izzy have a date, and it's really cute, and it's by the lake. Yeah. Next story. The gang is doing well. I love Marisol. I don't think I've mentioned this, but I love her. She's torturing John with mundane tech, so she's constantly telling him about mundane technology. And he's just like, stop telling me this, I don't want to know. George needs to have more confidence in himself. He is a fabulous human being. Julie and Beatrice both have crushes on Simon. That's not going to end well. For them. And they're all going on missions now, and they've all had turns being the leader except for George, and it's his turn now, and they have to stop a fairy who's been selling food that's been killing mundanes. And Simon accidentally goes to fairy, stopping George from doing that. And while he's there, he sees Mark Blackthorn, and it is so heartbreaking. I was crying. He's trying so hard to stay true to his family. Like, he's constantly repeating the names of the kids to himself to remind him of who he really is, but he is becoming a little bit like the Fae. But he's trying so hard not to. And Simon has to tell him that no one's coming to save him. And you're just like, no, baby, I'll save you. I'll save you. And then when they leave the wild hunt, clearly some of them don't like the fact that he's a part of it. And they were going to hurt him. And I'm like, no, we need to get Mark out of there. And it's made worse because the next scene we get is Simon at Helen and Elaine's wedding, as is his date, which is nice, but it's still... Because you see the Blackthorn family, and it is so heartbreaking what's happened to them, okay? Julian's had to grow up way too fast, and to take on... Like, Simon literally says, Julian was their father. And they're also desperate to hang around Helen because they love and miss her, but she won't leave Wrangel Island. They barely got the permission to do this wedding, and so that they could go. And I'm like, no, Helen needs to be with them. She's their family. They need to be together. Sorry, they need to be together. Don't worry, I was crying when I was reading it too. And Simon's looking at all of this, and he's just like, we have to be better than this. Let me find the actual bit. Sorry, just getting to the right page. We have to be better than this. Shadowhunters have to be better than this. We have to figure out what kind of Shadowhunters we want to be and show them. And I'm like, yes, you do, baby. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Then the next story's all about Parabatai. So Julie and Beatrice announced they're going to be Parabatai. And then Simon and Clary get told that Emma and Julian have asked them to be their witnesses. But first they have to drink this tea, and then it turns out the tea was actually the water of Lake Lynn, and they have like this weird trippy dream sequence, and they find out the whole reason for that was for them to go through the trial of water, because everyone's like, you guys are going to be fabulous Parabatai, so we're taking it out of your hands, you're going to be Parabatai. And Simon and Clary agree, like, yeah, we should be Parabatai. And Jem describes it really beautiful, like, there's Parabatai, but there's some who are, like, true Parabatai. You can see it before it happens, that they're truly destined to be Parabatai. And he saw them, and he's like, they're destined to be Parabatai. It was really trippy. The process to become Parabatai is intense. Like I said, there's that. But then also the actual ceremony where they're the witnesses. There's like circles of flame, and it's it's intense. But yay, Jem and Emma are talking. Carstairs unite! I'm so happy. But I'm not sure that Julie and Emma should be Parabatai. You know, the whole love thing. Like, I'm pretty sure they're gonna be in love with each other, and that's forbidden. Parabatai aren't allowed to be in love with each other, so I'm like, ugh, how's this gonna bite us in the ass? They're 14 now, and Simon is 19-ish. Because he was a vampire for like a year or so, so technically he did miss a year. Kind of. We have a Malik chapter. Now, preface this chapter by saying I have read this chapter before. Okay, when I heard that Malik adopted a baby, I bought the ebook version of just this chapter, and I've read it like 10 times, 20 times, countless times. So I had already read this chapter. But I have much more clarity for it now. Susie is now solid. Yay! Malik adopt a warlock baby, and they call him Max. And George is adorable. Like, he's the first to pick up the baby, and he's like, look, does it need a place to sleep? Simon and I could put him in our sock drawer. We could raise him. And I'm like, he'll precious small be. Well, he's not small. He's always described as being like, you know, a semi-Greek god. He's got muscles, he's Scottish, he's adorable. Simon and George are BFFs, except. I love the Lightwood family. Like, that whole scene with the baby was just... Magnus walks in and he's like, what is going on? And then he realizes everyone's come down with baby fever. They all want the baby. And he's like, wait, since when are we adopting the baby? And then he realizes it and he's like, you know what, we're going to adopt this baby. And Alec's like, good, you're with the picture. It's really funny because, you know, like, Maurice and Robert really hated downworlders, but they're desperate to play with the baby. They want to bounce the baby, they want to feed the baby. It's really quite funny. Alec has found his place in the world. I knew he would. His place in the world, like, he explains it to Magnus, is he doesn't want to run the Institute. He wants Jase to do it. But he wants to help Jase work with the Downworlders. That's his place. He wants to work with the Downworlders. And he's already doing it. Lily, Maya, and Alec have formed, like, the ultimate team-up, and they sort simple problems in the Downworld. And it is fabulous. And people come from all over the world to talk to them and try and get their advice on sorting out Downworld problems. Because there is a Shadowhunter, a vampire, and a werewolf, all in prominent positions who are working together to better the world. And I'm like, yes, Alec, I knew you had it in you. See, this is what I meant when in City of Lost Souls you disappointed me. You had so much potential, and now look at you. You're using it. You beautiful boy. Man, sorry. And a side note, I really like Lily. She's fabulous. And the Academy truly has gotten better. Like, John isn't quite so thick-headed at this point. There's a hilarious scene where Marisol stubbed his toe. And it's like, I need aspirin. It really hurts. He's like, what's aspirin? It's like, do you not even know first aid? What if I died because you don't know first aid? It's like, I shall explain it to you. It's like, no, please don't. You explained appendicitis to me yesterday and I couldn't eat. He's like, so the food's crap. I like food. Marisol slays. It's enough said. And then in the final chapter, where, Simon chose to keep his family, so Clary dropped him off so he could say goodbye, and he's like, no, there's loopholes. I'm gonna keep my family. I really want to read about that, though. Like, honestly, because by this point, Simon is jacked. He has actual muscles. And there's a scene he talks about earlier on when he was on vacation, in New York. He's with his family and whatnot, and his mate Eric sneaks up behind him, and he judo flips him, like, soundlessly. It's like judo flips him easily, and Eric's like, whoa, slow down, soldier boy. And it's just like, I want to read an entire book just about those reactions to Simon being up by it. Because we know he is, but I still want to read it. Susie is even solider, and it's so lovely. Marisol and John are together. Okay, she sneaked that one by me. I did not realize, but they are together, and I find that adorable. Because John Carstairs with not Carstairs. John Cartwright. Sorry, it's very similar. John Cartwright was like the biggest Shadowhunter, like Shadowhunters of Shadowhunters, that sort of thing. And now he's dating a mundane. I mean, she's going to ascend, but still. And then Simon ascends and he regains his memories, and it's beautiful. But then, this was why I was crying. George is dead. George is dead. Not George. I love George. George was apart from the characters we already knew, my favorite character in that book. He was so sweet. He was perfect. The ascension that it takes. So he's gone. George is gone. I think. He gets buried at the London Institute because, as the London Institute always says, we always have a place for Lovelace. So he gets buried there, and they go there to see his grave, and Simon sees like a ghost of him with Jessamine. So I'm like, is he actually gone, or is he going to help Jessamine defend the London Institute? I would like answers now, please. I need answers. Is George going to help Jessamine defend the London Institute, or is he gone forever? Tell me. Tell me now. Sorry, I'm not okay. And then Simon does like the most beautiful thing, because when you become a Shadowhunter, you have to choose a Shadowhunter last name. And so he chooses his brother's name. He's Simon Lovelace. Because before the Ascension ceremony, he and George have this beautiful talk, and George is like, I know I'm not your best friend. You have a lot of best friends, but you're my best friend. And Simon's like, it's true. I do have a lot of best friends. And you know what I don't have? A brother. You can be my brother. And now he's dead, and I'm like, no. George wasn't meant to die. How could you do this to me, Cassandra? How? George was perfect. He was so pure. He was gonna better the Shadowhunter world. He better be guarding the Institute with Jessamine. He better be. Because if he's not, I'm done. Sorry, I told you. I love George. I love him. Anyway, this book was really good, even though it broke my heart right at the end. I was not expecting that at all. This is a novella bind cup. I wasn't expecting anyone to flat out die. They did it in the main chronicles. Speaking of which, I'm reading that next because I need something happy. I do recommend reading this. Read this for George. Read this for George. I'm not okay. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. I will be connecting it to the other one, don't worry. If you did, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe. My previous video will be down here somewhere. And I will see you in the next one, which will be a review for the Brain Chronicles. That may be a bit nonsensical because I've already read it before, but we'll see. Anyway, bye guys!